Okay, what we have here is all the tools you'll need to rebuild your Turbo 400. Now, what you need to start with is you need to have some transmission fluid, because you're going to use the fluid to soak the clutches and also lubricate some of the parts inside the transmission during the reassembly. So you also need a pan to hold the fluid to soak the clutches. You know, if you want to wear some gloves to protect your hands, use neoprene or regular gloves to protect your hands. The other thing you want to use for protection, obviously, is safety glasses. The other tools you're going to need a drill and a set of drill bits. You'll be modifying parts of the shift plate. You'll need drill bits for that. You also need at least a 1/2-inch drive impact gun. Now you need a strong gun, because the bolts on the transmission case hasn't been taken apart for a long time, and those bolts would be very stubborn to take off. So I recommend a heavy impact gun for disassembly only. Okay, you also need a scraper to scrape the gaskets and seals off the case and the pan and the shift plate. So you'll need a scraper to take care of that. We also have a little die grinder here with a sanding pad, a scuff pad, to clean up the gaskets. And be careful not to be too aggressive with this and gouge the case, but you can use this for cleanup. The other tool you're going to need is a torque bar. When it comes to reassembly, you want one that goes in foot-pounds, and most of the bolts going back on the transmission will be torqued down to a spec. I'll go over that during the rebuild. You also need a pair of channel locks, either a regular pair of channel locks, or use this type for when you're reassembling the transmission to drop the components in the case. You'll need this to hold the main shaft as you drop it into the case. You also need like a 20 or 24-ounce hammer. That's again for disassembly primarily, or hammering into the case a couple of cup plugs, part of the reprogramming kit. You also need a heavy Phillips screwdriver and a regular flat blade screwdriver. This will be used to remove the snap rings in the case. You need a pair of calipers so you can actually measure the thickness of the clutches and the steels. Again, during reassembly, you need a flat blade chisel and also a round dowel, about a 1/4-inch size dowel punch, to hammer the plugs into the case and or the valve body. You also need a pick, good design pick. It's angled on one end and straight on the other. You use that again for disassembly and reassembly. Also a pen magnet or any type of magnet to remove check balls and stuff from the case. You also need a feeler gauge, and this is also a lip seal tool, and this will tuck in the lip seals during the reassembly. You need a regular ratchet, channel lock pliers, then you have snap ring pliers, and you have another snap ring pliers made for the eyelets for the boost valve and the pump. You also need an air gun, because you need some air during the cleaning process, as well as when you're reassembling to move some components. You'll need air pressure to do that. The other components you'll need is bushing driver. Here's a couple of bushing drivers that you'll need. And you'll need an array of sockets. You need a 3/8, 10 millimeter, 7/16, 1/2-inch, 9/16, and 11/16. These are all 3/8 drive sockets, 6-point. And you're also going to need a 3-inch extension, as well as a special 12-point 3/8 socket. And that's for a unique bolt in the center of the case holding the center support. Again, it's a 12-point 3/8 socket that you'll need to take out the center support. You also need an adapter 1/2-inch to 3/8 from the impact gun down to fit these sockets, as well as a 1/2-inch wrench and a 9/16 wrench. So these will take off coolant lines, and the linkage assembly, you'll need these wrenches. The other part you'll need is probably some type of Scotch-Brite to clean the valves in the valve body or the pump. You need trans gel, and I also use a regular paintbrush, and that's to apply the fluid and the trans gel on the components during reassembly. And we also have a transmission mounting unit. This is the other part of it here on the bench. You need rags, obviously, to clean your hands. And oh, one more thing. We can't forget you need a foot press. We have a foot press here. We use this to disassemble the drums. So you'll need a foot press to compress the drum down to remove the snap rings during the rebuild. So you also need a foot press. And that should cover all the tools you need to build your Turbo 400.